Hello, I hope everyone is doing well today. So this video is going to be a little different from my normal content. I've had this idea for a long time, and it is top 5 lessons learned from playing RuneScape. Like many people out there in the community, I started playing pretty young. I was 12 back in 2005 when I first logged into RuneScape. Like many people, my nearly 12-year RuneScape journey has had its ups and downs and its breaks, but ultimately I've always come back to the game that I started playing as a middle schooler. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how RuneScape lessons have helped me make real-life decisions, and how things in RuneScape can be related to real-life events. Now, the video portion of this video is going to be more or less just an illustration of some of the events that happened to me as a kid playing this game that helped me learn these lessons. So, number one is a Runehelms scam that I unfortunately fell for as a 12-year-old. So this was back long before the Grand Exchange, when it took an extremely long time for a noob like me to make a small amount of money. This oftentimes meant mining my own coal, iron, smelting steel, making it into helmets, and selling them to the general store. And when I finally saved up 25,000 coins, I had 40 defense, I was getting ready to buy my first piece of rune armor, and I was extremely excited about that. Because of all this excitement, I did not notice that in the trade window, when the person I was trading with started throwing up a bunch of other free junk with the rune helm, that he had removed the noted rune helm and replaced it with a mithril helm. I was extremely frustrated when this trade went through because I already had a mithril helmet, and the $25,000 coins that I just spent on it took me probably more than a week to make. I learned the hard way the importance of always checking the second screen, and this lesson has served me well throughout my RuneScape career. There didn't always used to be the flashing red light when someone removed something from the trade window. Now, this lesson transferred over into the real world when I bought my first house earlier this year. I had a mortgage contract that was many pages long, and I made sure I read through it. I'm not saying I was thinking about RuneScape at the time, but it definitely put it in my head to always read contracts and read the second screen. Lesson number 2 is that you have your best interests at mind. Others do not. When I was a kid playing this game, I had a Robin Hood hat. I was approached by a stranger who showed me 1,000,000 coins accepted and declined. He said he would give them to me, but I had to follow him, and I had to keep my hat on. Well, he led me up towards the wilderness, and he dropped the coins behind the tree up north of Varrock. Many people are probably familiar with this scam. Fortunately, when I stepped into the wilderness to go get them, his friend, who was attempting to kill me, splashed with his ice barrage, and I was able to escape with my Robin Hood hat because, as most people know, the Robin Hood hat used to have such a low protect value that nearly anything would protect over it. In hindsight, it was extremely stupid to fall for something like that. Somebody's not just going to give you that kind of money, and if they are, they're just going to trade it to you. There's no reason to drop it in the wilderness. I don't know why I fell for that as a kid, but I'll tell you, I only fell for something like that once. The best recent incident I have of looking out for my own best interest when somebody else clearly wasn't was last year when I walked into a national chain jewelry store engagement ring shopping. I sat down with a salesperson who was very pushy and was explaining to me that they had a sale that was ending today. This was the last day of this sale, and if you wanted to take advantage of all the deals, I had to buy it right then. Now, that immediately threw up a red flag to me. This specific incident reminded me of scammers at the Grand Exchange that'll say something like, selling dragon bones 1K each fast, and when they put them up, they're big bones, and they try to get you to accept quickly so that you don't realize that you're being scammed. I've not fallen for a scam like that. I think this is kind of a silly one, but this is honestly how I felt when I was sitting through this jewelry store sales pitch. Lesson number 3 is that if something seems too good to be true, then it probably is. Now, there are countless RuneScape examples that this could apply to, but one that sticks out the most in my head is when I was a lower level player and I finally had good money. I think I had like 350,000 coins, which for me at the time was a lot, and I ended up blowing it all on a set of full Addy gold, which was new at the time. I thought it was really cool looking, but in actuality, I had to spend my whole bank. It cost more than Rune, and it wasn't as good. And at the time, I really couldn't afford to do Fashionscape, so that was a really poor decision to buy that. It ended up being a pain to resell too, of course, with no Grand Exchange. This lesson ended up helping me out years later when I was first living on my own. I had a salesman come to the door, and it happened to be a natural gas supplier, which at the time I didn't know anything about. but he came in and made the sales pitch on how much money you could save using this supplier as opposed to the main company. And it seemed too good to be true, so I figured it was, and I turned him away. And then looking up that company, I think I made the right decision. And I will attribute that partly to RuneScape. Lesson number 4 is a good understanding of economics and supply and demand. Now, this wasn't my only exposure to supply and demand, of course, but in RuneScape you deal with it a lot. And I think the best example is when a new item comes out, the demand is extremely high and the supply is very low. Therefore, the price is usually pretty high. Then over the next couple weeks, it sharply declines because a large number of this new item are brought into the game due to people camping the monster that drops them. And eventually the price will kind of hit an equilibrium point. That's the point when I usually like to buy the new item. I don't have to be the first one to own something like that. Prior to taking advanced placement economics in high school, most of the knowledge I had about economics did come from RuneScape. So when I passed my advanced placement exam to get college credit, I have to give a lot of credit to RuneScape for helping me learn a lot of these basic economic lessons. Lesson number 5 is finance math / return on investment. Now, a large part of RuneScape, both pre and post Grand Exchange, is the idea of merchanting and about getting the most return for the money you put in. When you're flipping items, it's important to know that it's better to make a 2 GP profit on a 100 GP item than a 100K profit on a 10 mil item, assuming you're able to purchase a large quantity of the 100 GP item. Your return on investment is twice as high as the larger item. This is important to know when picking real-life investments, although you do have to factor in risk. Alright, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed, and if this video does pretty well, I will think about making a part 2. I have a couple more I could come up with, I think. Alright, I'll see you next time.